everyone, and welcome to the RMTV Women's Podcast. This is episode 86, and today we are joined by Sam. Sam, welcome.
Thank you. Wow, 86.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was that many.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I know, it is crazy.
That's crazy.
A lot of people know you, Sam, but you just want to do a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and what you do for some people who may not know.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Samantha Miller, and I'm now working in football. Previously played football for West Ham, Spurs, and a few other clubs. Did the tour of London a bit, and now just freelancing, doing broadcasts, presenting digital content, a mixture of things in football, bit of co-commentary as well, and predominantly working in the women's game, but also some in men's football as well.
Well, how did you sort of get into it? Obviously, like, there's a classic story of playing it and then finding a different route in terms of media and things. How did you sort of decide that was a path you wanted to sort of go into?
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually get asked this question a lot, so it's always nice to sort of share my journey, because I think a lot of people are wanting to know if they're interested in breaking into the industry themselves. So I would say it was a mixture of things. I was playing, and when I was at college, I did some work experience with Sky Sports, and I was lucky enough to go to a Premier League game, and I was in the tunnel at Palace v Spurs when Dele Alli scored this unbelievable goal. And when I was in the tunnel, I met a few people that I'd been working with and shadowing, and one of them was asking me sort of what I want to do, what I want to get into. And we were just having a chat, and from that chat he said, I think you would really like to work at the production company that's producing the women's football show. You seem really interested in the women's game. So I said, yeah, that would be great. So I found them online, and I kept calling them up until I got through, and I just explained that, I wanted to work for them, was happy to start at the bottom, be a runner, make tea and coffee. And eventually, after quite a few calls and going in for a chat with them, I started working there, freelance. And when I started working there, I said, okay, can you just put me on all the women's football show shifts? And I think they were quite surprised, because those shifts were sort of, because of the timings, the women's football show, used to be at midnight and filmed at midnight. So no one really wanted to work that late. So I think they were kind of like, great, yeah, you can do those shifts. And during those shifts, I met a lot of influential people. And eventually that alluded to them calling me up, I think about a year later, and saying, I remember you were the runner on the women's football show, and we could see you were really passionate about it and knowledgeable. Do you want to do some work with us? And so from then I started working with the BBC. But also while I was running, I was meant to turn up for my runner shift one time. They said, actually, would you mind going to a game for us instead today? And I got to work at, it was when Tottenham got promoted into the Championship, and they played Blackburn in Charlton, and I got to work at that game, and it was actually quite funny, because I remember doing the interviews after, and the manager Karen said, "What are you doing the interviews?" Because I used to play for her, and I said, "Yeah," and it was really nice, and got to interview them after they got promoted, which was quite special, having played for the club, and then sort of my first shift was interviewing them getting promoted. So and just went on from there, really.
Wow,
that's cool, eh? You've had quite the journey then.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I even remember along the way. I think I knew what I wanted to do. I sort of did have a vision from, even while I was playing, I knew I wanted to, work in the women's game. Having seen all the hard work everyone puts in, and I didn't feel like it was getting maybe the recognition and promotion it deserved, and I thought I really want to try and help change that. Just really pushed for opportunities. And I remember even after a game years ago, I waited, and I got to go to the bar after. I don't know if I might have been playing or watching, and in the bar after, Sue Smith was there, and I knew I was going to chat to her that day. I thought, it's a great opportunity, and I asked her for advice, and we were chatting for, I think, over an hour, and she sent me an email after saying, "No, I think you'll do really well. I can see how passionate you are about it," and it was, a real confidence boost that, I'd been, watching someone like her, maybe looking to emulate her in certain ways, and to get a sort of long email from her was really nice and encouraging as well.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, someone like Sue Smith, who's been around for like years and years, for them to say, "Oh, I feel like you'll be really good at this job." Like
yeah, it was nice. It was funny actually. I was meant to give my friends a lift back from the game, and they're waiting for me, and I'm asking loads of questions, and we're there for hours. I could just see my friends in the corner, like pointing to their watch, like, "What are you doing?" And but it was definitely worth it. So I think they forgave me.
Yeah, definitely. But like as I said, you pretty much cover like quite a bit of like the women's football, like every single weekend, like multiple matches, and so like no football since February, like nothing to cover. It must be a bit weird to like sort of have your weekends and be like, what shall I do with them?
Yeah, it is strange. I mean, weekends for me, in my busiest time, I know I've got games to look forward to, and usually might do a men's game on Saturday, women's game on Sunday. So my weekends usually sort of jam packed, and then I feel like in this isolation, you don't actually really know when a weekend is now. You sort of not feel what day it is. I'm not sort of getting up and being like, "Oh, weekend game time." But I mean, just before this happened, I was in America for the She Believes Cup, where I was going to 2 matches in one day because they'd have the back-to-back games. I was like, "This is great! I've got so many games in one day," and then sort of had my fix, and then got back, and I was like, "Oh, I'm actually not going to be able to go to games." So I'm happy I got some games in just before. But yeah, it is a bit of a strange feeling, sort of getting up and not having games to go to or things to do really. But I think we'll all look forward to the football starting again.
What sort of things have you been doing during quarantine to sort of keep your mind occupied? Because I know I'm sort of now at the stage where I'm running out of things to do. Like, I've done all the things that I've been putting off for months that I've actually now had the time to do. But now I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, what job can I like magically think of doing today that's going to keep me occupied for a few hours?
Do you know what? I think it's taught me that I don't get bored easily. So I remember when I was younger, like I used to, let's just say I used to go to Spain with my family, and I'd literally, get there, I'd dump my case, and I'd run to the pool, and I would just, be outside, just making up things to do all day by myself, and just be gone and busy all day. So I think I've always just been able to sort of keep myself entertained, find things to do. I go through a long walk a day, and I feel like that's really relaxing, clears my mind, and I'll put a podcast on my walk, listen to music, and there's a really nice walk by me where there's horses, and it's it's nice greenery to look at, and it's really refreshing. So I make sure I get my walk in. I'll find little challenges for myself to do in the garden. I always used to do. I've got a shed, and I open the shed door a bit, and I always used to do this even when I was younger. Place the ball and try and curl the ball round the shed door and get it in. It usually went well, except for the time where I think my mum was about to have a barbecue, so there was all drinks and things in there, and as it's curled around the corner, I just had to bang, and it was like dominoes, everything had smashed.
Classic.
But there's just fine sort of challenges to do with the ball. My mum actually loves doing sort of like YouTube dance classes, and she likes to use my laptop. So I end up joining in with her. So we'll do like a bit of a class for fun. I've got a dog, watching lots of Netflix. Brushing up on some skills that I've wanted to brush up on, maybe if it's like just making my content look a bit better or anything like that, practicing. Doing a bit of cooking. I sorted my whole room out, I gave a load of clothes to charity that I knew I wasn't going to wear anymore. And just sort of, chatting to friends, and then the days go really quickly for me. I just managed to sort of keep busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I found myself when it's like 6 o'clock, and I'm like, how is it 6 o'clock? Like, I haven't done anything to like pass the time. I feel like I just wander through the house, like seeing what like other people are doing, and like get involved with whatever they're doing, and then just go and do something else I'm doing. I'm just like, how is it 6 o'clock already? Like, where's the time gone? So there's like, I know Amy's like proper struggling because you get up at like 2 or 7 a.m. and I'm like, how do you fill the day from like that early?
I think it's
for an early riser. Yeah, it's probably a bit different. I love my sleep, and I can sleep in if
Thing is, I wake up so early, and then so I think I must wake up at about 7:30 every single day without a doubt. I don't know why, it just happens. And then I get up and then I do a job, and by the time I finish things that I've written down to do, it's like 10 o'clock. And it's like, well, now what am I supposed to do? But I definitely think it's this whole period for everyone is a bit of like a reflective period. So if you do have things that you sort of want to put a bit more time into, you've sort of now got the opportunity to do it. And just do jobs that you kind of been putting off for ages. And cleaning my room was definitely one of them, because it was a mess.
Honestly, clearing my room was the biggest relief of quarantine.
Yeah.
It's something I've been putting off because I wanted to do a proper clear out, like as in get rid of a load of things. I'm big into collecting things. I've got about 10,000 match day programs. I've got all my credentials. I have so much in my room, and I was like, I keep things that are special to me, but there were some things I just didn't need anymore. So, I mean, my room is the tidiest it's ever been, and I'm like, this is great. I would never have had time to do all of this if everything was normal. So, if I was to take a positive out of this, it would definitely be sorting my room.
For sure, I'd be the same. It was a mess.
Yeah, 100%. Back to like football a little bit then. In terms of like how the Women's Super League was sort of left, because obviously everything just went to a standstill. Looking at like the positions of teams and how they've performed this season, like, are you surprised at who's at the top and who's at the bottom, or like anyone in between? Like, would you have expected those teams to be where they are now?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the league table, Man City is sitting top, and I feel like they've gone under the radar a bit. I've not heard too many people talk about them in contention of the league. You hear everyone talking about Arsenal and Chelsea, but they have played an extra game, so we'll see. But I mean, for me, it's Chelsea and Arsenal. I've watched a lot this season, and both those teams have really performed. So I'm not surprised they are where they are at the moment. I mean, Liverpool bottom, that does surprise me. I mean, you look at the talent they have, a club with the resources that the club have. You would hope that they would get the backing and support to be able to be high up the table. Birmingham, I think once I saw the players that they'd lost and they hadn't replaced them, I sort of expected it wouldn't be their season. Previous seasons, they've done really well, and they're a team that are hard to beat. But once you saw the talent that had gone, you expected it. And then with Bristol, I think they've got some young players, that they maybe don't quite have the resources that the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal have. So, I mean, it's not too surprising, but there's a couple of surprises.
Yeah, I think everyone we spoke to has sort of said similar. Like you say, a lot of people don't mention Man City, but I think because you're so used to them sort of being in and around the top, that everyone just sort of expects it. So like when they are there, it's not sort of a surprise. You're just like, oh well, City are floating there, like you don't know. But then I think Arsenal have been a bit of a funny one for me this season because they did so well last year. There's been games this season where you've watched them and they haven't been quite up to standards that you'd sort of expect. And then I thought they'd blow it away this season after what they did last year. Then obviously with the emergence of like City still and Chelsea and stuff like that, then it is getting a little bit more competitive now, isn't it?
I think it was amazing what Arsenal did last year. With the injuries they had such a skeleton squad towards the latter stages of the season, and they still managed to win. They still played really, really well, and I think, you know, you look at Chelsea, and I think when clubs don't have Champions League, you know, they're that bit fresher. They can focus more on the league, whereas when clubs are in the Champions League, it's such a huge thing to be a part of, and you really want to progress. You're focusing on different things. You know, Arsenal, I think this break will actually be so beneficial for them. You know, looking at the injuries they started to pick up, and you know, you could see some players might have been a bit tired during games, and now that I think they will come back refreshed and maybe be an even better side. But and never write Arsenal off for anything, because some games you just watch them and they blow you away. I mean, the talent they have is just remarkable.
In terms of obviously returning to football, do you? I feel like I probably know this answer anyways, but do you feel like the league has almost 100% has to be finished? Or I know there are some people that just think, oh, let's just leave it there, let's scrap that. But I think if you think about the domino effect of letting this league just go after this amount of games is probably worse off than if you were to resume it at a later date and see the effect on that. But what do you think should and what do you think might happen?
I think the most important thing is safety. You know, as much as we all love football, you can't put people's lives at risk. So I think timing is really important. I think it needs to be resumed at a time where it's safe enough to. You know, they talk about playing games behind closed doors, but I just don't think that will be the same. You know, you want fans to be able to go. I personally feel that the season should be resumed, but when it can be. You know, it just means that everything has to be delayed. But I just think, you know, for me, I'm more someone who's like, you got to finish what you started. So I think there's no reason why it can't be finished, and then, you know, have a shorter pre-season because players have had this time to rest, and then the season the new season starts earlier. But I think it all depends when it is able to continue, because if it's not able to continue for a while, then that could have an effect. But I think it all comes down to when is this going to sort of be over, really?
Yeah.
No one knows. It's sort of an unknown, so it's a weird situation to know what's best to do at the moment.
Yeah, because not just like domestic wise in terms of just like the WSL and like FA Cup and that, it's also like Champions League. Like you said, in terms of obviously finishing this season's one is like crucial, but for next season, like who goes in the Champions League if the league's just scrapped? Like there's just those type of implications that are just like, well, how are you supposed to solve them if you just void this season?
Yeah, it's just such a strange situation. It's hard to know. I mean, if this season doesn't continue, then do the teams that were in the Champions League this season then restart, and you know, you have the same teams in the Champions League next season? But so difficult to know.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, the league does still go ahead. Who do you think will be crowned the champions, and then equally, who do you think's gonna be the team that gets relegated down into the championship?
I've been saying this all season. I'm very torn between Arsenal and Chelsea. I think, you know, if Arsenal would continue to have injuries, you might have said, well, Chelsea have a lot of squad depth, so it's in their hands. But I think after this break, when Arsenal are going to have hopefully a fully fit squad and able to compete, I think it's a bit of a game changer. I think it might come right down to the wire between those two teams. But I think Chelsea have looked solid this season. I mean, I was at the game where they played Arsenal at Bournemouth, and they dominated. If Chelsea can keep doing that in games, then it will be theirs. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm glad it's such a tight season where you don't know who's going to win. I mean, Man City has still got a chance, but for me, it's looking more towards the London clubs. In terms of relegation, it's a really tough one because the likes of Liverpool, Bristol, and Birmingham are all by the bottom, not really picking up many points. I think Bristol's win over Birmingham was a big one for them, which then looks bad for Birmingham. But Liverpool are bottom at the moment. I think it depends how these clubs find their form after this break. For some clubs this break might really benefit them, and some it might not. I think I've heard a lot of players talk about actually seeing the positives in this break where they haven't really had a chance to refresh, give their bodies the rest and recovery they need, and sometimes that does you the world of good. So will some of these teams come back physically fit and have the recovery they need? I mean, Liverpool, they've definitely got the players there. Once you saw the players they signed in the summer, you thought, they've got a good chance this season of progressing, but it just something hasn't gelled, hasn't clicked maybe. But they started just before this break. I feel like they started to sort of gel a bit more and perform better. So we'll see what happens.
Sure.
It's like we're getting a bit nervous now because obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the league. So then you're sort of thinking, if it voids, then we're sort of dodge a bullet because obviously no one goes up, no one goes down. But then you don't want that. You don't want the league to be voided at all. And we don't want to just have no football whatsoever. So then, like you said, it obviously depends on how the games sort of pan out and how they work it and who comes back better after the breaks and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. But in terms of you playing them, like you mentioned at the start, you play for clubs like West Ham, Tottenham, and a few others. How did you sort of get into that? And what was that process like? And what was it like playing for those teams?
Yeah, so when I was a bit younger, I mean, I used to play at school a bit. It's funny, at primary school, we used to try and so all the boys used to play in the lunch break, and some of us used to try and take their ball, just as a joke. So I'd run onto the pitch and try and get their ball and tackle them. And one of my teachers was watching, and she said, "I know you're just sort of doing this as a joke, but you're actually quite good." And I was like, "Thanks." And then one of my friends played. My two stepbrothers played, so I used to play with my two stepbrothers in the garden all the time. Every day I'd be in the park with my dad, and then one of my friends said, "Why don't you come along to these sessions?" So just went to some fun football sessions, and they said, "Oh, we've got a trip to America. We think you should play in it." So I went to America to play in a tournament during the summer, and that was an unbelievable experience. And when I got back actually from the tournament, I actually started going to watch Arsenal. At the time they were Arsenal ladies, and they play near me. So I started watching them, and I think just seeing them play at a high level, you sort of have something to aim for. So I was watching them, and I thought, I'd really like to play at a high level. And so I just really worked on it, and started going for trials at clubs. And I think the biggest game changer for me was when I trialled for Barnet Academy. So it was you could play for an academy and also study at college. And I wasn't sure I was going to get in because at the trial, all the girls had come from Centre of Excellence. And I was pretty much just playing down the park with my dad or, messing around with friends. I actually used to always take a ball to the park and turn up and then look for games that were going on in the park and just say, can I join in? And that was actually really good childhood memories. But I got into this academy and I was quite surprised because of the level, and I had a coach called Tracy Kevins, who's now part of the US setup. And she's coached in America, she's coached here, she's been part of the England setup before, and I think she's the best coach I've ever had. And just learning off her was such an experience, and I loved training. I got to train every day at an academy and absolutely loved it. It was one of the best times of my life. And then from there, just more trials and moving to different clubs. And playing, I was just really passionate about playing and just loved every single training session. But then I think when you start to get a bit older and playing for different clubs, obviously you have your highs and lows. It's not all smooth sailing. You have times where you're absolutely loving it and it's incredible, and then you have times where it's not quite going how you expected, and there's hard times. But I think it teaches you a lot, and just some of the friends I've made through playing is special as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we can sort of both agree with that because we've both played since we were younger as well. Like you said, playing in the playground with the boys at school was I was the only girl in my class who did that in primary, and then I went to an all-girls school, so that stopped, and they didn't really have football, which was really sad. So I had to go and find a team to play for at the weekend and stuff like that. So then, but like you said, in terms of it's accessibility for young kids, was getting to play just on girls teams and not with the boys all the time, because I think that was the biggest problem for me, is that there wasn't many teams that about or that I knew of. And then there wasn't as many games on TV or that I could go to, and my dad would always take me to my football games of a weekend, but we never really went to watch Liverpool women play when I was younger. Just not until the last probably say 4 or 5 years for me that I've really took notice of the women's game. So that's why we've only been doing this for a little bit, which I wish I'd been doing it for a lot longer, because it's always been there. It's just you've just sometimes never really known about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely evolved over the years, and it's great to see sort of different channels, either on social media platforms covering it, and just the accessibility is there, and it's just really great to see. And yeah, I think, like you said, there wasn't that many teams when we were younger to play for, and to see now that there are is great. And just being able to see that games are on all the time and you can watch.
There's been some pretty memorable things in the women's game that has gone on, especially in the last couple of years. Obviously, the World Cup, She Believes, blah, 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 and you've been lucky enough to go to cover most of them. There must have been a moment where you probably thought you'd never be able to see these sort of experiences and opportunities, especially in the women's game. How amazing is it now that, as you said, you can switch on the TV and see all the England women's games on the BBC, blah, blah, blah. Did you ever really think that the women's game would get to this point?
I think I had hoped for it to get to this point, so I sort of was visualising it happening, and I thought, I hope it does. In terms of what I've been able to do, yeah, I suppose I hadn't really imagined it being able to do the things I've done. I think the World Cup was massive. I think probably my highlights so far out of everything I've done, just to be able to go to France for 5 weeks, and just sort of explore and cover the game. I think going to the World Cup final, I mean, I would have loved to have seen England in it. That would have been something special. But even just going to the final and experiencing the atmosphere and the hype around it was just something I'll never forget. And I think even just being in France, meeting loads of people who share the same passion for football that I still keep in touch with now. I made friends in the US, in Australia, and it just football all brought us together, and it was just an experience I'll never forget. And yeah, just honestly, the buzz around the stadium going to games was unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's a good note to end it on. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been nice to have a little chat like this about football, face to face and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll be at some actual games soon.
Yeah.
It's not too long to wait.
Yeah, no, I'll look forward to seeing you both at some games soon, hopefully. It's just crazy. You might be like, oh, I'll see you at a game next week. I can't say when I'll see you at a game because...
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? But I'll see you when I see you, I guess. But no, it's been nice to chat, and yeah, it's always nice to go on a trip down memory lane and put the pieces together of the journey. So hopefully more to come when everything resumes.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back next week with a brand new podcast. See you then.